A young boy walks through the bustling alien marketplace, feeling small among towering, unfamiliar creatures. He's one of the few humans on this alien world, and though he's accustomed to being overlooked, today feels different. His eyes catch sight of a figure slumped against a wall, an old beggar, cloaked in rags, her face hidden beneath a hood. Aliens pass her by, some hurling insults, others kicking dirt at her, all treating her as if she were beneath them. The boy hesitates, unsure if he should get involved. He knows that showing kindness here, especially as a human, is an invitation for mockery. But something compels him forward. He fishes out a piece of bread from his pocket, approaches the beggar, and kneels. Without a word, he offers it to her. The beggar's hands tremble as she accepts the food, her voice barely a whisper as she thanks him. Her words are strange, cryptic, as if she knows more than she's letting on. The boy, puzzled, stays for a moment longer, but before he can speak, a group of aliens nearby burst into laughter. They've seen the exchange and are now mocking him loudly. Look at the little human, helping a beggar, weak, like all of them. One of the aliens sneers, stepping forward. The boy straightens, bracing himself for the ridicule. They jeer, calling him naive, weak, and foolish for showing compassion in a world where only strength is respected. The boy clenches his fists but says nothing. He doesn't regret his action, even though it's cost him his dignity in their eyes. The beggar looks up at him, her eyes briefly catching his, a glint of something deeper flickering in them, but she says nothing more. The boy walks away, the laughter of the aliens ringing in his ears. He tries to shake it off, but the words sting. He returns to his small community of humans, but even there, his actions are frowned upon. Some of the older humans tell him he should have known better, that humans must survive by blending in, not standing out. But the boy can't forget the beggar's eyes, the way they seem to hold a secret. Days pass, and the mockery only grows. The alien elites, the most powerful and influential in the city, catch wind of the boy's act of kindness. They make him the center of their cruel jokes, going as far as to challenge him to prove his worth. The boy knows he's being set up to fail, but he refuses to back down. He faces their trials tasks meant to humiliate and expose him as the weakest among them. The challenges are grueling, designed to break his spirit. The aliens laugh at his struggle, calling him weak, mocking his human fragility. But the boy persists, relying on his wit and determination. His resilience surprises even the aliens, though they mask it with more taunts. Throughout it all, the beggar woman watches from the shadows, her presence a silent reassurance. During the final challenge, the boy reaches a breaking point. Exhausted, humiliated, and on the verge of defeat, he hears a voice soft but firm. The beggar has stepped forward, her hood still drawn over her face, but her words are sharp, offering guidance. She tells him where to strike, how to maneuver, and with her help, the boy manages to turn the tables on his opponents. The aliens, shocked by his unexpected success, don't know what to make of it. The boy, however, is beginning to suspect that the beggar is more than she seems. She speaks with too much knowledge, too much authority for someone in rags. And as he faces his final task, she steps forward once more, this time throwing back her hood. The marketplace falls silent as the beggar reveals her true identity. She is not a beggar at all, but the hidden queen of the alien race, long thought lost. Her time in disguise had been a test, not just for her people, but for anyone who would show kindness to the weakest among them. The queen's return shocks the alien elites, who had mocked and ridiculed both her and the boy without realizing who she truly was. The queen's voice is cold as she addresses the elites. She chastises them for their arrogance, for their blind worship of strength and power at the expense of empathy and compassion. She recounts how they failed to recognize the value in the boy's act of kindness, how they dismissed the very traits that make a civilization truly great. The aliens are silent, their smug superiority shattered. Turning to the boy, the queen offers him a place by her side, acknowledging that it was his humanity, his capacity for compassion that had saved her, and by extension, her kingdom. She praises the human race for its strength not in physical power, but in its resilience, its heart. The boy, still reeling from the revelation, accepts the queen's offer, knowing that his life has just irrevocably changed. He steps forward, now an advisor to the queen, standing as a symbol of humanity's hidden strength in a world that had long underestimated it. As he takes his place by the queen's side, the alien elites are forced to reconsider everything they've believed. The queen's judgment is swift and decisive. She restructures the hierarchy, ensuring that the values of kindness, empathy, and cooperation are no longer seen as weaknesses but as strengths. The boy's influence grows, and with the queen's backing, he helps guide the alien society toward a future where power is balanced by compassion. The boy's journey isn't over, but for now he stands victorious, knowing that his small act of kindness, mocked and belittled by others, has changed the course of an entire kingdom. The queen smiles at him, a silent acknowledgement of the bond they now share, as they prepare to face the challenges of a new era together. And in that moment, the boy realizes that the strength of humanity lies not in brute force or superiority, but in the heart, the one thing the aliens had overlooked but now couldn't deny. The young boy wandered through the alien marketplace, his footsteps lost among the chaos of the crowd. Everywhere he looked, strange creatures moved about, towering above him, their vibrant, otherworldly forms casting shadows over the dusty streets. He was small, almost invisible in their eyes, just another human in a world where his kind was considered weak and insignificant. They looked at him the way they always did, with indifference at best, contempt at worst. The boy had grown used to it. On this planet, humans had no place of prominence. They were seen as physically frail, their emotions too volatile, their compassion too impractical for the ruthless society that ruled here. But something about this day felt different. His eyes scanned the market, catching sight of a figure slumped against the cold, stone wall. It was a woman, cloaked in ragged, filthy garments, her head bowed and her hands outstretched, asking for help. Aliens passed her without a glance. Some sneered, some spat in her direction, and a few even went out of their way to kick dirt onto her. She was nothing to them, a beggar at the bottom of their rigid social order. Her presence didn't register, and when it did, it only evoked cruelty. But the boy couldn't walk past her as the others did. Something tugged at his heart, a sense of duty, perhaps, or maybe it was just that he knew too well what it felt like to be looked down upon, to be dismissed. He hesitated, aware of the crowd. He could already feel the weight of their judgment, the potential for ridicule. It would be easier to walk away, to ignore her like the others, but something in him resisted. Slowly, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small piece of bread, his own meager meal for the day. He approached the beggar, kneeling down beside her, and offered the food. The beggar lifted her head just enough for him to see her tired, weathered face. Her hands trembled as she took the bread, her eyes reflecting a gratitude that went beyond words. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice rough from what seemed like years of hardship. But there was something more in her tone, something knowing, something that didn't match her appearance. Before the boy could say anything, a loud burst of laughter erupted from nearby. A group of aliens had been watching, their eyes gleaming with amusement as they pointed at him. Look at the little human, one of them jeered. Helping a beggar, how pathetic, the others joined in, their laughter sharp and cruel. Weak, like all humans. You don't understand strength. The boy stood, his face flushing with embarrassment, but he didn't regret his choice. He couldn't. The beggar, still holding the bread, looked up at him with a strange intensity. Her eyes seemed to sparkle with a hidden depth, a glint of something far beyond what he could understand at that moment. She said nothing more, but her gaze lingered, as if she saw something in him that the others didn't. As he walked away, the laughter of the aliens followed him, echoing in his mind. He tried to shake it off, but it clung to him, a constant reminder of his place in this world. When he returned to his small human settlement, even there, his actions were frowned upon. Some of the older humans pulled him aside, telling him he should know better than to stand out. "We survive by keeping our heads down," one of them said. "It's not our place to show kindness here." As the boy settled into his new role beside the queen, he realized the full extent of the challenge that lay ahead. The alien society, deeply ingrained in its values of strength and dominance, was resistant to change. Though the queen had revealed herself and publicly endorsed him, the elites were not so quick to embrace this new order. Behind closed doors, resentment brewed. The very same elites who had mocked him were now subtly undermining the reforms the queen sought to implement. Whispers circulated through the court. Some claimed the queen had been weakened by her time among the commoners, that her time in disguise had clouded her judgment. Others murmured that a human had no place in alien leadership, no matter how noble his actions. Despite the queen's clear authority, the boy felt the weight of the hostility directed at him. He knew that many in power still viewed him as an outsider, a weakling in their world of harsh rules. Yet the queen was unwavering. She stood by him, more determined than ever to reshape her kingdom. She often spoke of her time in hiding, how it had opened her eyes to the suffering of her people. The boy became her confidant, and through their discussions, he began to understand the depth of the corruption that had taken root within her court. The elites had grown accustomed to their privileged status, blind to the needs of the weaker members of society. It was not just about their disdain for humans, it was about maintaining their grip on power at all costs. The boy, though young and inexperienced in matters of court politics, knew one thing: humanity's strength lay in its adaptability, its resilience. He had faced mockery and hardship all his life, and this was no different. If he had learned anything from his journey, it was that change rarely came easily, but it was possible with enough determination. Over the weeks that followed, the queen and the boy worked tirelessly to enact their vision for a more compassionate society. They restructured the court, replacing corrupt officials with those who showed empathy and understanding for the common citizens. The boy's unique perspective, one that balanced strength with compassion, influenced decisions that began to ripple through the alien society. However, the deeper they delved into reforms, the more opposition they faced. The elites were not content to simply fade into the background. They began to plot, seeking to restore the old order where strength alone ruled. They whispered of rebellion, of deposing the queen and silencing the boy who had disrupted their way of life. One evening, as the boy walked the dimly lit halls of the palace, he overheard a conversation between two of the most powerful elites. They spoke in hushed tones, but the intent was clear. They planned to stage a coup, to rally the discontented factions and overthrow the queen. The boy's heart raced. This was no longer just about him being mocked. This was about the survival of the queen's vision for the future and his own safety. He quickly found the queen, informing her of what he had overheard. She nodded gravely, unsurprised. "I knew they would not accept change easily," she said, her voice calm but firm. "But they underestimate the strength of unity. Let them come. They will see the true power of what we've built." In the days that followed, the tension in the court grew palpable. The queen and the boy prepared for what they knew would be a confrontation, gathering those who believed in the new vision. Not all the aliens were loyal to the old ways. Many of the common people, those who had suffered under the elite's rule, rallied behind the queen. The boy, to his surprise, found that he had become a symbol of hope. The people saw in him the possibility of change. A human, once mocked and powerless, now standing at the queen's side, guiding their society toward a better future. The night of the coup arrived. The elites, emboldened by their numbers, stormed the palace, confident that they would reclaim their dominance. But they were met with more resistance than they had anticipated. The queen, standing tall in her royal armor, addressed the rebels directly. Her voice was steady, full of the authority that had once ruled unchallenged. "You think strength is only measured by power, by force," she said, her eyes scanning the room. "But strength is also measured by the willingness to change, to grow." This human boy, she gestured to him, showed more strength in one act of kindness than any of you have in all your years of ruling through fear. The elites sneered, but their confidence wavered as the queen's supporters emerged from the shadows. Commoners, soldiers, even some former elites who had seen the value of her new vision. The palace courtyard became a battleground, but it was not a fight of swords and weapons. It was a battle of ideals. The boy, standing beside the queen, watched as the elites struggled to maintain their grip on power. They had always believed that might would prevail, that fear and force would keep them at the top. But they were wrong. The strength of the queen's movement, built on empathy, cooperation, and unity, proved far more formidable. The coup was short-lived. The elites, realizing they were outnumbered and outmaneuvered, were forced to surrender. The boy, once ridiculed and mocked for his compassion, had helped lead the charge against the old regime. And with the defeat of the elites, the boy and the queen cemented their vision for the future, a society where strength was no longer measured by power alone, but by the willingness to protect and uplift the weak. In the aftermath of the battle, the boy stood on the balcony of the palace, looking out over the alien city that was now his home. The stars glittered above, distant and eternal, a reminder of how small they all were in the grand scheme of things. Yet, in this small corner of the universe, change had taken root. He could feel it in the air, in the way the people now looked at him, not with disdain, but with respect. The queen joined him on the balcony, her presence calm and steady as always. "You've done more than you know," she said softly, her gaze fixed on the horizon. "You've shown my people that there is strength in compassion, that power is not the only way to rule." The boy smiled, though he felt the weight of what had happened. "I only did what I thought was right, and that," the queen said, "is what makes you truly strong." As they stood there, side by side, the boy couldn't help but wonder what the future held. He knew that the road ahead would not be easy, that there would still be challenges, still those who resisted change. But for the first time, he felt hope the future could be different, that humanity, in all its complexity and imperfection, had a place in this vast universe. And with that hope, he realized that perhaps this was just the beginning. There were other worlds, other societies out there, each with their own challenges, their own struggles. Maybe one day he would travel to those worlds, sharing the lessons he had learned here. But for now, he was content to stand beside the queen, to help her build a society where kindness, compassion, and strength could coexist. The laughter and mockery that had once followed him through the marketplace were now distant echoes, replaced by something far greater, a sense of belonging, and the knowledge that one small act of kindness could change the course of history.